Hey guys, it's Samantha, and I am actually doing my February monthly spread on the first day of February, which is the most on time I've been in months. Usually I do my monthly, hopefully sometime before the month ends, so this is like very, very on time for me. I did go ahead and white out pretty much everything in the sidebar because the sidebar girl was very, very light colored and you could see the lines through the white dress. So I was that person and I whited out everything so I didn't see the lines through her dress. But because this is the first of the month, I really don't have anything to put down other than bill dues, the days Joe is on call. I think there's like a doctor's appointment, a work event, and our anniversary. So there isn't much to talk about in terms of content, I guess, and all the holidays too. But this spread, I decided to do mixed metals. I did both gold and silver since there is both gold and silver glitter in this spread. And I wanted to be able to use all of the washi, not just stuff with silver foil. And I really like how it turned out. So I did pull in, like I said, both silver and gold foil stickers as well. And yeah, so I'm just going to jump into talking about the books I read in January. And if you want to see all the books I read in January, make sure you're following me on Goodreads. I keep track of all of my books there, so you can go look at my read list and it'll have the dates that I started and finished reading everything that I've read. So you can go see in reverse chronological order what I've been reading from like most recent on, you know what I mean? I think you can sort it all different kinds of ways, but someone has asked for me to put the books in the description, and that would just be like a really long list. So just go follow me over on Goodreads, and you can see everything I've been reading. So I'm just going to go ahead and start chatting about the books I read. So I'm just going to group these all into one, but I did finish the Lunar Chronicles. So I read Scarlet Crest Winter and then the Stars Above short story collection. I skipped over Fairest, which is the Lavanna story, like the Evil Queen origin story. I just didn't feel particularly called to read it. But I did enjoy the series. I thought it was fun, as it kind of moved away from just being about Cinder and Kai, who, I'm going to be honest, were probably my least two favorite characters in the series. I really liked Scarlet, I really liked Wolf, I really liked Thorn. I particularly enjoyed Thorn and Aiko's relationship. So Thorn just always cracked me up. But I liked it. I see why there's like so much teen appeal with those books. They were a lot of fun just to listen to. Winter was so long because I did the audiobooks. All the other ones were pretty short, and then Winter just, I felt like it was the book that was never going to end. I was listening to that for ages, but it was really good, and I really liked Winter and Jason. I thought they were super cute, and you kind of get to know them all within that one book, which is probably why Winter is so long. But those were sort of all interspersed throughout, but I just wanted to talk about them all as one thing since it was the series, and honestly I can't remember what happened in each different book. I can kind of just like remember the plot of the series. So the next book I read was Love a la Mode, which was a fun romance that takes place in a culinary school in Paris, and I really like that author's other stuff. Stephanie Kate Strom, something like that. Strom, I don't know. But I really liked this one. I don't love most like fluffy contemporary romances, but hers are really well edited. They have fun characters. They're well written. They're not quite as fluffy and mindless as some of the other teen romances are. They're not like Harlequin kind of romances by any stretch of the imagination. And I really enjoyed the food elements in this one. The author, you can tell she is quite the foodie, and she's definitely knowledgeable about culinary arts. She uses terms correctly, which sometimes that's a big pet peeve of mine when I read a book, since I'm so into food. When I read a book about cooking or something and you can tell the author doesn't really know what they're talking about, I could tell the author knew what she was talking about, which I appreciated. I love food. I love reading about food. I love reading about people being in the kitchen. So it was right up my alley. Then the next book I read was an ARC, which is an advanced copy. This one comes out in March, I think. And it was To Best the Boys, which is sort of it was billed as like a feminist adventure where she's going through this maze quest thing to get entrance to an all-boys school, to be like the first girl to get to go to university. And it was okay. It had pacing problems. You don't get into the maze until almost 60% of the way through the book. And then the maze is a very short amount of the book, whereas reading the description, I thought being in the maze was going to be, like the bulk of the book was going to take place in this maze. And it ended up being very rushed. And all of the character development took place outside of the maze. And I was like, a lot of this could have happened in the maze. And I don't know, I was just disappointed that there was all this exposition. Like, you don't need 55 to 60% of your book to be exposition. That's just excessive. So, I mean, it was okay. Like, the message was cool. I liked the characters, but it definitely had pacing issues. And also, for whatever reason, this was one of my biggest pet peeves. It looks like there's a circuit board overlaid over the cover, but there's no technology in the world that this is taking place in. It's maybe like late 1700s, early 1800s technology for the most part at best. There's no computers. So I was like, why is there a circuit board? It made me think it was like a futuristic society when I picked it up. And then it was like, oh, this takes place in a like lower tech society. I was baffled by whoever decided to make the cover that. That was just a weird choice that didn't really make sense. Then the next book I read was The Astonishing Color of After, which was amazing, and it's just a very emotional book. It's about like a daughter who goes to, I think it takes place, I think it's Hong Kong. I'm pretty sure it's in Hong Kong, and she has never met her maternal grandparents, and she goes to sort of discover her mother's past, and there's a lot of magic realism involved, and I'm a big fan of magic realism, and the book was really, really well done, and it sort of reminded me in the vein of, oh my goodness, what's the name of that book? Everything Beautiful is Not Broken. They're definitely read alike, so if you liked one, you will like the other. And then the next book I read was a thriller, Two Can Keep a Secret, written by the same author, Karen McManus, of One of Us is Lying, which was one of my favorite murder mystery books last year. And I personally really, really enjoyed Two Can Keep a Secret. I could not go to sleep until I finished it. I stayed up way too late. I read it all in one day because I was like, I have to find out who did this, how all the pieces fit together. I did not guess the killer until, actually, I don't think I guessed the killer at all. Which doesn't happen very often, but I did not see that one coming. So if you are a fan of thrillers, murder mysteries, that kind of stuff, I thought it was on par with One of Us is Lying. And then the next book I read was a huge disappointment. I got an advanced copy of Gilded Wolves, which was a book I was really excited about. It was sort of billed as a Six of Crows esque sort of thing. And I thought like the characters fell flat. They all sort of read the same. There was no world building. They didn't explain any of the concepts. I was so confused. It was just like jumping from point A to point B, and I found myself rereading scenes over and over again, trying to figure out what was going on. I didn't understand the character motivations. I was just so confused the entire time I was reading this. And I didn't care about the characters, whereas Six of Crows, like sometimes the like plot of the heist got a little convoluted, but the characters were so amazing. And these characters were just, they all felt like the same person, and I didn't like them the way I really loved the characters in Six of Crows. And you could also tell the author lifted quite a bit from Six of Crows. Like, basically, the guy and girl quasi-romance thing is just copying, like, Kaz and Inej down to, like, a lot of their character traits. And, you'll know what I mean if you've read both. If you read Gilded Wolves and you've read Six of Crows, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. The next book, however, was not a disappointment. I read this all within 24 hours again, and this was The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson, which is the sequel to Truly Devious, and it delivered, and now I'm left yet again devastated that I have to wait a year to get the next book because I want to know what happens. It was so good. I really, really love this series. It's a murder mystery type thing. Oh, I did goof up my footage here and did not record putting down the washi for those bottom two. I can't remember if I said that at the beginning of the voiceover, but I did goof up. It stopped recording and I didn't realize while I was putting this down. So sorry, guys. But the next book I read was a book in verse, and it's actually translated. The book was originally published in French, and it was called In Paris with You. And this definitely, I think, skews more towards 20-somethings. It's being marketed as YA, but it's definitely sort of that new adult. Like, the characters are 24 and 27, and most of it, there is a flashback to the summer they were 14 and 17, but I would not recommend this to teens. I think this would be great for 20-somethings, and it's a book in verse. It read really quickly. I enjoyed the story. I think it's a, retelling of some Russian novel, and I can't remember what novel it is, but I read that in someone's review, but I avoid Russian literature like the plague because all of it that I've read I could not stand. And so I did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it's a shame that a lot of places don't have a new adult section. A lot of times people hear new adult and think softcore porn, or erotica or whatever, and this was not explicit, but the content is definitely something that a lot of 20-somethings I think would relate to, looking back on your teenage years and that sort of stuff, sort of from a decade after. But I really liked it. I thought it was fun. I think it's a shame because if a teen picks it up, they're gonna be what the heck? I don't want to read a book narrated by a 27-year-old man. And it would fail on the adult shelves in a library because it's not going to appeal to a baby boomer. So it's just whatever, but it's really cute. And if you like books in verse and you like Paris, pick it up. I thought it was a fun read. And then the next book I read was Echo North, which is a Beauty and the Beast, Tamlin, Cupid and Psyche, sort of that vein of fairy tales retelling, and I really liked it. I really like fairy tale retellings. I love fairy tales. My favorite class I took in college was actually the study of fairy tales. So I personally really enjoyed it, and I really like books like that. If you liked, I don't like all of her stuff, but if you liked Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge, I think you would really like this. There were even some things that reminded me of Howl's Moving Castle. And I know she was heavily inspired by East by, the author's last name is Pattau, Pattau, Judith Pattau maybe. And I thought it was fun. It reads like a lot of books in that genre, but I'm okay with that. I'm a sucker for that genre, and I will read similar books over and over and over again because I just really love fantasy and fairy tale retellings. Then the next book I read because it was a Prince honor book, and it was short, and we had it on the shelf, and I was able to read it in one afternoon at work. But oh boy, it was an emotional ride was What the Night Sings, which is an illustrated book for teens that takes place before, during, and after the Holocaust. And it was, as all Holocaust books are, just a punch in the gut for a couple hours. And I was just had a pit in my stomach until I was done reading it. But it was really well done, and I can see why it won. It was a super important story, and it dealt with more of like the after, like the rebuilding of stuff, like in the couple of years after the liberation of like the concentration camps. But I needed something to cleanse the palate after that because it was just really heavy. So I read My Almost Flawless Tokyo Dream Life, which is as fluffy and like full of teen tropes and whatever. It was at its best while you were sort of exploring Tokyo alongside the main character and the elements of like Japanese culture that would be really foreign to someone who's grown up in America. It was fun. It was fluffy. It had a makeover sequence, that kind of thing, but it wasn't the greatest book I've ever read, but it was a fast, fun, fluffy read that was sort of like the book equivalent of looking at pictures of kittens online. It just was something fun that I needed. And so, yeah, that was everything I read in January, and this is my finished spread, and I love how shiny it is with the silver and gold. It's real pretty. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and hearing about all the books I read in January, and I'll talk to you in my next one. Bye!